Taoiseach, the situation in Gaza is a humanitarian catastrophe. Yesterday, the death toll stood at 3,000, more than one-third of whom are children. A child in Gaza is now being killed every 15 minutes. So in real terms, by the time you finish responding to my questions, another child will be dead. There's no water or electricity. Food has nearly run out. Even the body bags have now run out. Hospital generators are running on fumes. When the hospitals do run out of fuel, sometime today or tomorrow, incubators keeping babies alive will be switched off. Their short lives will be over then too. Humanitarian aid, food, water and medical supplies is stuck in Egypt because Israel has refused to agree a ceasefire. Israel won't even stop bombing for a few hours to allow citizens of its supposed allies to get out. There are 40 Irish citizens in Gaza. They're trapped. The carnage and terror they're witnessing every second they remain there is unimaginable. Taoiseach, this isn't a war, it's a genocide and an ethnic cleansing. And the response of the EU has not just been inadequate, it has been callous, indifferent and dangerous. This reached rock bottom on Friday when Ursula von der Leyen visited Israel. By then, Israel had dropped 6,000 bombs and on an area half the size of Louth. Thousands were dead and injured, food, water and electricity supplies had been cut off, and the Israeli government had given 1.2 million people 24 hours notice to leave northern Gaza. What was the European Commission President's response to this litany of war crimes and breaches of international law? She stood with the Israeli Prime Minister and offered him the EU's unqualified and unconditional support. She said Israel can count on the EU. Taoiseach, last year when Russia targeted civilian infrastructure and cut off electricity supplies, Ursula von der Leyen called out their war crimes. When Israel acts similarly, she not only fails to utter a single word of criticism, she goes to the region to offer support for their war crimes in our name. The Commission President's failure to unequivocally condemn Israel's collective punishment of the Palestinian people has undermined the EU's response to this crisis. Given von der Leyen has no authority to override Member States' foreign policy positions, her comments also amounted to a serious overreach of her authority. Taoiseach, I am grateful that you and the Taoiseach have been clear that Ireland's position is that Israel are in breach of international law, but it's really concerning to hear your words this morning in this chamber because they're weak. You have an opportunity at today's emergency meeting of the European Council, so I have three questions. Will you explicitly condemn the EU Commission President's response to this humanitarian disaster? What will you do to ensure Ireland exerts the strongest possible influence for a ceasefire and de-escalation of violence at that meeting? And what is the government doing to get Irish citizens out of Gaza?
Taoiseach, please. Thanks, Deputy. The position of the European Union is the one agreed in the statement by the European Council, and that was agreed on Sunday after a lot of conversations over the weekend, and I hope we'll be in a position to build on that position today at the Extraordinary Council of the European Union. It is the case that each EU member state has its own foreign policy. We only have a common foreign policy when we agree to have one and when we can agree joint statements. And while I think that President von der Leyen has done an extremely good job as President of the European Commission, whether it's on issues such as climate, issues such as COVID, issues such as Ukraine, some of the statements that she made lacked balance, in my view. And I've said that to her and have no difficulty saying that. I do think the statements that she's made more recently were more balanced, specifically talking about the tripling of EU humanitarian aid for Gaza and also the attempts that we're making at the moment to organise a UN humanitarian air bridge from Gaza through Egypt. In terms of what we'll be calling for a de-escalation. We don't want to see this conflict spread to other parts of the Middle East, conscious that we have troops in Lebanon and Syria and I'm concerned for their safety. Nobody wants to see this spread to Lebanon or to the West Bank or to other parts of the Middle East. And there are actors who want this to happen, perhaps including Hamas and some states in the region, and we should not forget that. We will stand over Israel's right to defend itself. I hope we all agree in this House that Israel as a state has a right to defend itself and to pursue terrorists who attack it, but we'll be very, very clear that is our view as a country, that must be done in accordance with international law. The fact that Hamas hides among the population, the fact that Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, is using Israeli hostages as human shields now, that isn't acceptable. We need to call that out too. But those civilians are not to blame for the fact that Hamas uses them as human shields and shouldn't be punished collectively as a result.
I agree that it needs to be condemned on both sides, and we have been clear about that. But Taoiseach saying that her statements lacks balance itself, because it's more than lacking balance to go over and stand with the Israeli president and say that they have the EU's support. A genocide is occurring on our watch, and the international community is standing by and letting it happen. And you just saying that you kind of hope to build on a position at the council meeting isn't going to go far enough, and I just want you to please not underestimate the importance of your voice at today's European Council meeting. Ireland is one of very few states willing to call out Israel's war crimes for what they are. We have a responsibility to the people of Palestine to do all that we possibly can in the upcoming hours and days to push for a ceasefire and the opening of aid corridors, because you mentioned that, but the tripling of EU aid to Palestine is pointless unless these corridors are opened before it's too late, Taoiseach. We need to make it unequivocally clear that Ursula von der Leyen does not speak for Ireland, has no right to offer our support and the support of the other 27 member states to Israel as they rain down bombs on innocent civilians. Taoiseach, the UN are calling this an ethnic cleansing, and the EU are failing to even condemn it. The EU officials are still failing to offer any kind of criticism. So how long more will the EU stay silent at the expense of these people? And will you please use your voice today to represent Ireland on this? The more minority the voice, the more important it is to speak louder for these people.
Deputy, I hope that we can all agree a few things in this House. First of all, that we condemn without reservation Hamas's actions in Israel, and that we call for the release of the hostages immediately without any preconditions. I hope that we will all agree that, just as is the case for any sovereign state, including our own, Israel has the right to defend itself and has the right to pursue the terrorists that attacked it, and to try to rescue the hostages who are currently being held in Gaza. I hope we can all agree on that, and I hope we can all agree on a third thing, that it is not acceptable. It is not acceptable for Israel, in defending itself, to violate international humanitarian law, to target civilians, to cut off civilian infrastructure, or to order people to be displaced to the south of Gaza. I hope we can agree all of those things. I specifically asked about the consular situation, just to say that we are in constant contact with a number of citizens in Gaza and all the relevant authorities regarding their cases. We're also closely working with the EU and other states who have citizens in Gaza too. In terms of citizens in Israel, the main airport, Ben Gurion at Tel Aviv, remains open and commercial flights are available, and we're assisting Irish citizens to depart through commercial means. We also are monitoring the situation at Rafah, where the border crossing situation remains fluid, and we are in contact with relevant authorities through our embassies in Tel Aviv and Cairo and our office in Ramallah to assist Irish citizens who want to leave as soon as foreign passport holders are allowed to do so.